How scary is it? Mark Riley, and I'll use your surname on this occasion, Mark, 'cause you phoned me a few times, but you are a veteran of the US media, now, for romantic reasons, now settled in Brighton. But you you know of what you speak, so tell me why you picked up the phone today. What's going on here?
To let people know a few things. One, Charlie Kirk and Jesse Waters and all the rest of these people who are commentators on the American body politic are word pimps. That's what they do. That's how they got rich. That's how they move forward. Charlie Kirk, who died at the age of 31, was busy arguing with college kids. That's how he made his money. And people need to understand that. He wasn't debating, by and large, was not debating people of his own age or even of his own intellect. He was debating kids. And he said some really despicable things. Ask yourself this, James.
You and I find them despicable, but people who find them wonderful are really cross if we play them out, which is another odd element of this entire conversation.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you kind of have to sort of expect that. It's like, do as I say, not as I do.
Okay.
Look, Charlie Kirk was born in 1993. Martin Luther King was assassinated in 1968. What do you think Charlie Kirk knew about Martin Luther King?
Yeah,
to call him a despicable human being, or to say that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a mistake. The man was born in 93, and he's talking about an act that was passed in 1964. He was a word pimp. He had no real experience about a lot of the stuff he talked trash about.
You don't sound as if you're as worried as I could be about what this might presage.
No. I mean, look, we've seen in America an attack on the capital of the country. Now, that's the political and spiritual seat of the United States of America. And people attacked it, and not only were they pardoned, some of them are lionized, and Donald Trump, with a straight face, talked about having a parade for one woman who was killed during it.
And I'm hearing condemnations of political violence from his supporters. I mean, it's... I suppose it's a mistake to look for logic here, Mark, and that's the curse, isn't it, really? You're trying to find a rational explanation, but there can't be a rational explanation for somebody pardoning insurrectionists and complaining about political violence. It's not a rational approach.
Of course not, and they don't complain about violence when it comes to children. The leading cause of death for children under the age of 14 in America is gun violence. Do people want to try and talk about that in the context of Charlie Kirk? Do people want to say that, for example, Sandy Hook, which was decried as a hoax by some of these same fellow travelers, does somebody want to say that that has something to do with Charlie Kirk? I mean, they use guns in both cases.
And again, he'd spoken about how some deaths were the price you pay for the necessity of the Second Amendment.
Of the Second Amendment,
but doesn't it? I mean, the more you talk, the more it mounts up. It's imagine a wall. I don't know what the wall is. Decorum or democracy or decency. And the more stuff you're piling against that wall, surely the more likely it is that the wall will fall.
It is more likely, but right now, America's in the middle of one of the most bizarre periods of its history. And that history started when Donald Trump went down the escalator and decided he was going to run for president. What was that, 2015? Mm-hmm. And now we're 10 years later, a full decade later. And the man, and by the way, I don't know if you've discussed it yet, but have you taken a look at the picture that he took yesterday with his mouth all drooping on one side?
I did see that. I don't want to read too much into it because I was uncomfortable when people speculated too much on Biden's health. But actually, in retrospect, that was probably a mistake. But he does look very odd at the moment.
Yeah, he does. And I mean, look, I can't, I'm not a doctor. I don't know anything about the man's health. Everybody, who is it? Carolyn Levitt says he's in great shape. Fine. Okay. But if you listen to what he says, never mind the drooping mouth. Listen to what he says. He repeats the same thing over and over and over again. And seems to have no clue that he's doing it.
Yes, and certainly the scrutiny that was applied to Joe Biden is not being applied to Donald Trump. But let's look at what he said yesterday. It's extraordinary, really, The media need to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonising those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year. So he's now subscribing to the idea that there should be limits on free speech, having spent much of the last year insisting that there shouldn't be any, and that we have a particular problem with it over here in the most hateful and despicable way possible. When he talks about those on the radical left, who is he talking about?
Anybody from Bernie Sanders to AOC to anybody who disagrees with him.
Anybody who thinks pardoning insurrectionists is not a very good thing to do. Anybody who thinks insurrection is not a very good thing to do.
Absolutely not. But I got to tell you, James, and this is a much wiser person than me. He happened to be my older brother. He passed away some years ago. He said to me once that you can't be halfway for the First Amendment. Now, the First Amendment is, quite frankly, freedom of speech. And I've always believed throughout my life, after he told me that the way to counter bad speech is with better speech. And we don't hear enough of that.
Well, this is why Trump's comments yesterday are so difficult, isn't it? Because he's got almost that's why I played the two clips at the beginning, and you as a broadcaster will have appreciated that. The idea that the guy who sounded, to me at least, and I'm, as always on this programme, open to contradiction, open to challenge, the guy who sounded to me quite measured and thoughtful has been fired by MSNBC, and the guy using words like avenge on Fox News is he's still in his job. He's probably going to get promoted.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jesse Waters is one of those guys who he's a word pimp, just like Charlie Kirk was a word pimp. These are people who speak to an audience that is, if you use church terms, it's a congregation of the converted. These are people who all believe in their heart of hearts that what they've been told is all correct, and that their job is to fight for what they've been told. No matter what idiot told them.
Don't stop and ask questions. Don't stop and ask for evidence. Just feel the anger, feel the hatred, and get out there and indulge it. And the people on the other side of the argument who are saying, don't be guided by hatred, don't be guided by fury, condemn all acts of political violence, especially if they're undertaken by people who may be on a similar political page to you, they are completely drowned out. That's the bit I can't quite get used to yet. Is that some of it is cowardice, some of it is self-interest, some of it will be fear. You saw what happened to Stephen Colbert. But the idea that the narrative now is being defined by the people who are in favour of political violence and somehow managing to cast their political enemies as being the people who are in favour of political violence, when the polar opposite is true. The polar opposite is true.
Absolutely, the polar opposite is true. And until the people, and there's a guy, you know who John Leguizamo is?
Yeah, the actor.
Yeah. He's put out a series of posts, I guess it's on YouTube or whatever, and he makes more sense than all the rest of these clowns combined. Because what he says is that the people that you talk about, not the insurrectionists, not the people who believe everything Donald Trump says, but people who believe in better speech than what Donald Trump is spewing, need to get together, need to get strategic, and need to act. There
is no resistance. You need rhetorical resistance. But of course, he's attacking the rhetoric already when there isn't any. I mean, the more you dig into his words, the harder it is to sustain the idea that he's not on the ball at least some of the time, because there's a sort of pincer movement to his logic, but the completely at odds with reality it becomes. There are lines on there in various historical periods about how effective it is to accuse your enemy of doing exactly what it is that you're doing. So condemn all political violence. As Mark points out, the First Amendment, there is no better honouring of the First Amendment than to condemn absolutely always the idea of anybody being killed for their opinions, killed for their words, killed for their ideas, challenged, if they breach legal thresholds, prosecuted, but killed? Absolutely never.
Do you understand why so many in this country and in Europe more generally would have seen what happened in the Oval Office as an attempt to humiliate President Zelenskyy and be repulsed by it?
Well, if they watched all 53 minutes, then I don't think they would have that feeling. If they saw clips of it, which of course will be clips of J.D. Vance and Trump being very angry with Zelenskyy, then of course they would come to that.
Could you imagine President Trump speaking to, say, President Putin in that way? And isn't it precisely the point that he wouldn't, that is part of the problem?
Well, if President Putin pushed him the way Zelenskyy pushed Trump,
what did
bet.
Zelenskyy do? What did he do that was so egregious in your view?
Well, one is that he started litigating the 2014. He said, I don't want a ceasefire.
He said he wants peace repeatedly. He just doesn't want it on Russia's terms, which you'll understand because Russia invaded his country.
But he said, I don't want a ceasefire. He made that comment to Trump.
He said he doesn't want a ceasefire if he knows that Putin is just going to renege on it a couple of months later, which is fair enough, isn't it? Because he's done that repeatedly, you will accept.
Exactly.
No, not exactly. I mean, the point is that, of course, anyone wants a ceasefire, but there's no point in having a ceasefire, is there? Which is what Zelenskyy was saying to Trump, if Putin is just going to renege on it shortly afterwards.
And Trump was saying, how do you really know? I mean, if you're really coming from that position, that no one can guarantee anything. But if you don't move forward to get something into an agreement and then be able to put the right security.
But what has Putin said that gives you or President Trump any indication at all that he even wants a ceasefire? Putin has said he doesn't want a ceasefire at this point.
Putin is... Look, I'm not here to have an argument because you clearly have a position that I don't agree with.
What would that be? What would that position be?
Well,
I mean, we would both agree, wouldn't we, for a start, that Putin started the war?
Yeah, what I would say is that Putin legally violated international law. Morally, he thought he was right, and strategically...
But you would agree that morally he was wrong?
I know I would not agree morally is wrong. I would agree legally he was wrong.
You would agree, you would not think that a man who literally, as we speak, still sends drone attacks to kill Ukrainian civilians is morally wrong?
Oh, and you think that Ukraine isn't doing anything to the Russians?
Ukraine didn't invade Russia. Russia invaded Ukraine. That you wouldn't agree that was morally wrong?
Okay, all right. You know what? That is 3 years ago.
Right. So if we were sat in 1942, would you have been on the radio going, "Look, don't worry about it. Hitler invaded Poland 3 years ago"?
You know what? I didn't sign on for this hypothetical discussion.
It's not hypothetical. I'm just trying to tease out the logic of what you're saying, Dr. Halper Hayes.
One is that James Baker and Thatcher and Mitterrand and Kohl, etc., had promised that NATO would not move 1 inch eastward, and that was violated. So you want to look at all the different people that violated their agreement?
When did America start basically just sort of representing what Moscow thinks? Those countries wanted to be part of the NATO club. Your club. Are you saying that they should never have been allowed to exercise their democratic and sovereign rights as nations and join that club?
Oh, God. You know what? I don't like having my words twisted. No, I really don't.
You don't like... Well, but that's the point of an interview, isn't it? Is to discuss what you're saying. And I'm just asking you... You're saying... With respect, Doctor, I'm just trying to understand what you're saying. You're saying that those countries should never have been allowed to join NATO, and then we wouldn't have been in this situation. And I'm saying to you that surely those countries should have been allowed...
I didn't say that. Well, see, that's why... No, hold on a minute.
But you cited what happened in the... so you're saying that it's fine for them to join NATO, then?
I didn't say any of those things, and I don't like when someone tries to give words and interpret without understanding. I'm done. Okay. I'm off. I don't like you.
Okay. Well, that's fine, Dr. Albert Hayes. maybe some of the listeners won't like you, but that's fine. I'm entirely indifferent to that. I'm very grateful for your time. Dr. Jan Halper-Hayes there, former Global Vice President of Republicans overseas. Apparently I'm not going to be on her Christmas card list. Maybe I will be with Oliver in Harlesden, though. Oliver.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good morning, still just about.
Good morning. What a disrespectful, low life leader is Mr. Zelenskyy. Oh my God, this guy.
A low life? What? He's been bravely leading his country for 3 years, Oliver.
Okay, listen. I'm going to be very quick here. I'm not going to be as technical as you or the other listener. Listen, you go into America, you're not even bothered to wear suits. You just go with that.
Come on.
Yes,
so you're saying that when Winston Churchill visited the White House in the 1940s, he should have worn a suit?
Okay, listen.
Does that matter?
Okay, listen. He's going to see the most powerful leader on the planet.
Yeah.
Come on, have some respect. And the way he went on in the video, he was so disrespectful.
What about Elon Musk? Elon Musk don't wear a suit in the White House. Doesn't seem to matter to Donald Trump.
I'm not talking about Elon Musk.
Well, no, but you're the one.
No, please don't stop. Please. Let me finish, please. He's going to see Trump. Yeah, the most powerful leader of the planet, and he went off about small details.
Is the president of the United States so petty that he would genuinely have a massive row with someone? If he was really committed, if he thought that Ukraine had justice on its side, are we really saying that the president of the United States and the vice president are so petty that they'd let it all just get out of hand just because of what the president of Ukraine is wearing?
Can I finish my statement, please?
Well, no, I'm just asking you a question.
Please? Yeah, but no, you're not asking me, because you just talk over me, sir.
No, okay.
I'm finishing very
You're saying something ridiculous, so,
Oh, my, yeah, okay. You're bully. Oh, my goodness, you're unprofessional.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Oh, I tell you what, can we get through 3 calls now without someone hanging up?
What I've learned, James, as a Palestinian American, right, born and raised in the United States, living in Texas, what I've learned is that I always knew that the sympathy and the empathy for Palestinians was low in the West. I always knew that, right? Yeah. But what I've learned now is that I always thought that there was a threshold, right? I was like, there's no way they'll get away with that. There's no way Israel can do this and everyone's just going to sit back and let it happen. What I've learned is that was an absolute lie, right? International law does not matter. It's an illusion. Right? It's an illusion because it only counts towards the people that we're friends with, that we care about, right, as the West, and not the people that we don't know or people that look different than we do, right? And on the question of, like, as you mentioned, the UK could have done more, even though it really wouldn't have changed the whole situation.
Well, exactly.
That's the thing, right? Like, I don't know what they could have done more. Right, I don't know,
but we do know that it wouldn't have changed anything, because what we've both learned is that there is actually no upper limit on what Netanyahu will do without being stopped. The question of who and what might stop him is moot in that moment of recording. That we now know that there is no limit on this. The people who were talking about dropping a nuclear bomb on Gaza at the very outset of this horror, they actually have had fingers on the steering wheel all along.
Absolutely, and not just at the outset, but even recently you had a senator or a congressman saying something similar here. But I think actually doing something shows moral clarity, right? So let me just give you an example real quick. So I co-founded and run an organization supporting blind people. I'm legally blind myself. Okay, right? I'm legally blind myself. So we support people that are blind here in the United States and internationally. And when Gaza started, me being Palestinian, I was like, there's got to be a way I can help people there. And we figured out to be like the only people in the world specifically trying to help the blind people in Gaza. Like we support 10 blind people with their families in Gaza, right? And it's a drop in the bucket, right? Yeah. It's not going to make a change in the overall scene of things, but I know I'm at least making a difference to these people.
Sure.
Right? I'm helping them in any way we can. And I think that's what needs to be done, really. On the bigger scale, full boycott, divestment, just that's the only thing that's really going to that's actually going to stop this.
I hadn't thought of that. I mean, I don't know what the diplomatic obstacles would be to just getting heavily involved in humanitarian aid at a governmental level. But, I mean, we know that we've spoken to surgeons trying to get in. and trying to get out, and they've been frustrated at every turn. Some of them brave and dedicated and committed enough to actually persist and get into hospitals and operate on people in conditions that are unthinkable to Western medics. But I don't know what the rules and the laws and the diplomatic situation would be with regard to a country like the United Kingdom trying to almost independently or autonomously provide humanitarian aid. I don't know how they'd get in, but you'd like to think they'd tried or looked into it, wouldn't you? I want to say two things to you. One is a statement and one is an answer. I worry, the more I look around the world, that in the United Kingdom and the United States, we've been slightly misled about the scale of public sympathy and public support for the Palestinian people. I think that we have been fed an almost unleavened diet of othering and denigration. And actually, the more I learn about how these things are reported in two countries I know quite well, for example, Ireland and Greece, the more I realise that that is not the West, as you and I would describe it. And the second is a question. Do you think sympathy and so, because Texas is probably not a wonderful case study for answering this question, but do you think it's increased? Do you think there's more sympathy and support for the people of Palestine now than there was 2 years ago?
100%.
Yeah.
I would say I would definitely agree with that. I mean, I was born and raised in New Jersey,
sure,
right in the East Coast. I moved here about 7 years ago.
Even I can tell that, and I grew up in Kidderminster.
But the thing is because of how social media is now, right? Because of that, the world has access to information that was locked behind the door by mainstream media. Now it's out in the public. Everyone can see it. You can't hide it. Either you sympathize and empathize, or you're just cold and dead inside.
Cold and dead inside. Thank you, Nadir.
I believe that you should leave the HR as fast as you can and get any illegal immigrants out as fast as you can. As an American, we voted for Trump. I love what he's doing. I'm here in the UK. I see you guys struggling with the same problems, and I think fighting age men should go back to their own country and fight to make their own country better, not make countries like yours worse.
When you hear a caller saying that Donald Trump is dismantling the rights of American citizens bit by bit every day, how do you respond?
No, I don't think so at all. We voted for what he's doing. Number one campaign run was to get rid of illegal immigration. But that's what we voted for.
But Michael, to Rachel's point that some innocent people, she says, are being caught up in this, and in some instances, having committed no crime, they're still booted out of the country. How comfortable are you with that?
If they came into the country illegally, that's breaking a crime. And sometimes innocent people get caught up all the time. It's just what happens. Do you kill everything off to get rid of 99% because 1% suffer? No, I don't think so. I think that 1%'s got to suffer for the greater picture.
If you had a vote in the UK, for whom would you vote?
Whoever's going to get rid of illegal immigration.
All right, Michael, thanks for your input on that.
Whether you love them or loathe them, politicians in the past who have undertaken military engagement that wasn't necessarily very popular domestically have displayed what you would have to call principle or backbone. I don't know that anyone's ever accused Donald Trump of having either principles or backbone. So what do you think he's going to do and why? 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. Gay's in Bath. Gay, where are we going to start this morning?
Well, it's all too worrying, and I just wonder if Trump's finally realised that it's rather serious, and it isn't going to go away with just a bombing of any site where nuclear weapons might be being built. But also, I think he realises now that he's got a very weak chap in Pete Hegseth heading up the military. And also, it looks like he's already been sidelined, as is Tulsi Gabbard, who is the intelligence person.
I think a pause. Should we just pause for a moment to reflect upon those two appointments? And I mean, not laugh, because we could be upon the brink of some sort of hideous international military situation. Well, not even on the brink of it, but if America gets involved, everything gets bigger and worse. But he appoints people who are absolutely appalling, because the only way in which he can sustain power is to surround himself with complete incompetence. But then suddenly they matter, their job matters. And you're right, he's got this Fox News host in the Defense Department and this Kremlin apologist in the Intelligence Department. It's extraordinary.
And if you think of the parade he had on Saturday, that organised by Hegseth, it wasn't exactly a success. It wasn't North Korea or China or even Red Square.
No, it was. It reminded me of Kidderminster Carnival in about 1978.
Without the catch 'em quick cops.
Yeah, exactly that. When Mum dressed me up as a lion using old zippers to make me a mane. So what's he going to do?
Well, I suppose not doing anything is going to save lives. I wish I knew. I hate looking at Benjamin Netanyahu, and I could say some pretty horrible things which aren't very,
Yes, of course. I mean, there's plenty of people saying horrible things about Benjamin Netanyahu. A borderless narcissist is what one Knesset member called him yesterday.
They're trying to stay out of prison, aren't they?
Yes, of course. Okay, so that's, I don't know what that is. It's an abstention, I think.
I think personally Trump's got two reasons for giving himself some time. No decision should be made on impulse. That's a sign of ADHD, and I don't think he has that. So he's a wise man.
Oh, shut up.
Listen, no.
No, come on. What's your favourite example of his wisdom?
He's a businessman.
Well, he certainly played one. He played a businessman on The Apprentice. But give me your favourite example of his wisdom. I'm
not a businessman, and Mr. Trump is. He's sitting on billions. I don't think you are, or neither am I. So,
what? Give me your favourite example of his wisdom.
He was the reason there was no war between India and Pakistan.
No, he wasn't.
So he called peace there.
No, he didn't.
He did.
Okay, all right. And as he found, didn't he find the cure for the common cold the next day as well?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Oh, the man's a genius. I take it all back. Seriously, I can't continue this conversation. Donald Trump is a wise man. What an absolutely ridiculous thing to say. And also the fact that he doesn't act on impulse. What about grabbing women by the genitals? Is that something that he gives lots of thought to before he actually does it, or is that perhaps something that involves acting on impulse?
Okay, I see where this is going. All right.
Well, it's going to his examples of his behaviour described by himself, as opposed to what you're doing, which is coming up with examples of things that have never happened.
He's given himself 2 weeks to make a decision, to take his country into war. The Americans...
It's 10:45.
So I agree with you that he's not going to go into this war. And personally, I think that's a good thing. I was a British soldier until 4 years ago. Okay. And nobody who's ever been to war or fought in any military capacity ever wants to start another unwinnable war. The only people who want to start wars and go into wars tend to be armchair generals in the media or in our political systems.
Yeah.
And I think I have a lot of respect. I don't say this often, but for Trump, I have a lot of respect for him because the pro-Israeli lobby is very, very powerful in the US and here in the UK. And I think Benjamin Netanyahu has kind of pushed himself too far. And now the world sees that following Israel's lead all the time is not good for the world.
He's not sanctioned Israel really in any way. And despite the early reports that they'd known nothing about what happened last weekend, it's pretty clear now that they knew everything about what happened last weekend. So they may not have joined in, but they certainly did nothing to stop it.
It's challenging for people because I don't know how much you know about US politics, but there's a group called AIPAC, and they used to be called ASMPAC. They're very powerful. That's why Joe Biden, despite what he said, he's fearful of that lobby because they have a lot of money. And they
have a lot of influence. Of course, they do.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same here in the UK. With the Conservative Friends of Israel group, where you have people like Priti Patel. She went on a jolly mission and never got punished for it. I spent time in the Conservative Party as an activist, and I know generally how powerful the pro-Israel lobby here is in the UK.
I think most people listening to this programme do. I know you're not claiming any particular levels of unique insight, but it is obviously a a well-drilled observation. And if Donald Trump were to defy the wishes of the Israeli administration and many of their supporters outside of Israel, then I can see why you would admire him. It wouldn't matter whether he was doing it for reasons of self-interest or principle. You would get the result that you wanted to see, and many people want to see the same result. I don't know why. Well, that doesn't explain why you think he won't go in with Israel.
So he doesn't want to. If you look at, over the last few days, people like Tucker Carlson and, the other...
Steve Bannon has come out against Netanyahu as well, I think.
Yeah, even Joe Rogan, who, is credited as being, the podcasters who kind of pushed him to reach a new audience to get elected. They've turned against him. They don't want to see a foreign war. They don't want to see, another country and America being brought, because just bombing from the air, that doesn't win wars. No country has ever won a war just by bombing from the air. You have to physically be there, and there's no solution. Just bombing a reactor or a nuclear facility doesn't mean that the regime will capitulate. And who have they got to replace it? They've got the Shah, the Pahlavis, the Shah's son. They're a dictatorship. That's why Iran hates Israel, because at the time of the Shah, the Israelis were the best friends of the Shah, helping train the Shah's torture teams and regime thugs to keep. And I'm not saying the IRGC or anybody, the mullahs, are any better, but there's a genuine reason why the Iranians hate the Israelis. There is, if somebody tortured your family or your grandparents...
We've covered a lot of that this week, and the split among Iranian opposition to the administration between people who would welcome any intervention that toppled the regime and people who desperately desire the toppling of the regime but absolutely don't want it to be facilitated or achieved by Israel, whether alongside the United States of America or not. I mean, I would remind you of the 1953 coup in Iran, which was essentially masterminded by the United States, the TP Ajax project, and the UK were in lockstep with the States on that. I needed a bit of a crash course on that particular chapter yesterday after a caller brought it to my attention. But and I mention it only because once you start tugging at the threads of history, almost any opinion can fall apart. And looking at why he might not do this now, I think you've hit upon the biggest button, which would be because the people whose adulation he craves, if you want to be psychological about it, or whose support he needs, if you want to be political about it, are at best split and at worst opposed, and that may define which direction he goes in.
People in the United States could give a crap about Ukraine, and Donald Trump knows it. And he wants to do business in Ukraine. His son is now laying the groundwork to do business in the Donbas to get some of those minerals.
So it's not about American interests. So when I say somewhat naively, why on earth does he need Putin to occupy the Donbas to do a deal? The United States government could do a much better deal, a more favourable deal with the sovereign Ukraine. But of course, if there's going to be deals that are not subject to transparency and legality, to rules and regulations, then he needs Putin to be in charge so that he can fill his own filthy boots, or his son's filthy boots. Rosanna is in Hammersmith. Rosanna, what would you like to say?
Hi, good morning, James. I'm sorry, I'm terribly, terribly nervous. So if I get touched, I do apologise.
Oh, well, of course. And I'm sure you won't, but don't worry. You've got all the time you need.
Okay, well, what I wanted to say, firstly, we are not dealing with principled people here. I know people like to make excuses for Trump and his cabinet, but these are people that will flip-flop whichever direction the wind blows. They really are all about their own survival. I think what has happened is we are dealing with people who have reached such a level of wealth and power to the point where nothing is of meaning anymore. It's like reaching the top level in a video game where you've actually beat the game. You have now conquered the top level. Then it's over, and you've worked so hard to get there. And then what? And then there's this nothingness. What I'm left with is pandering to the lowest instincts. And they are.
Well, I'll tell you what's left. What's left is adulation.
Yes, But at this point, I mean, they are insatiable. This is not about reaching a goal. There is something so broken in those people that nothing will ever be enough. It's like an insatiable monster. And I don't think, and people say maybe Russia has some compromise on him and this. I don't believe that is the case. I believe greed is what drives him. Maybe Trump Moscow Plaza and some other, like the rarest, most wonderful promises of even greater wealth.
I mean, again, this applies to Musk as well, doesn't it? How can you be the richest man in the world and not be satisfied, not be content? And I don't know, is it more wealth? I mean, you can finish a video game and then you can go and play it again until you've unlocked every single achievement, as you say, and you've collected every single Easter egg, and it is literally finished. It's over. The game is done. And yet
the emptiness sets in.
Yeah, the emptiness is still there.
And you have the moment of triumph, and then what? And then what is the next thing? So it's finding something to feed that hunger, that lack of inner happiness, that lack of something so broken inside, to reach that high, to become that successful, to have that much drive, to have that much audacity and moxie to do whatever you have to reach that level of success. Something is driving one that is more than a desire for good. It's a hunger. It's appeasing that beast inside, that something is so damaged. And it quiets it for a while. There's the high, that satisfaction, that joy, the pleasure. But then that goes down, and then you need to feed it with more and more. And then when you've reached the pinnacle, then what? There's nothing more left. So at this point, what they're doing is they're just settling scores. They know there are no consequences. That's it. They have reached the ultimate level. And he said before he entered the White House, I mean, he was going to do all these things. Yeah. He's not. Democracy died the day he set foot at the White House this time. That was it. America is, we all of us are coming from principled places and people want to see the best and people want to this. No, people have to look at things as what they are. And he's pandering to people who are like him. And sadly, there are far too many people out there who are like him, who maybe buried those dark instincts. But they now have a voice. They now have a leader. They now have, they've been emboldened and empowered to speak out and rejoice and go and see, I knew it. I wasn't the one that was wrong. Look at all those suckers. He doesn't want to stop the killing. He couldn't care less. He actually looks at conscripts as the suckers. They were not clever enough to get out of military service. Yes. He has no respect to veterans. He has no respect for weakness. And there is no more. The hunger will never be satisfied. There is no end. Which is why we must align ourselves. And I don't care where people stand on the political spectrum, but we have to see what is at stake. I remember yesterday there was a call to Ali Miraj, a woman named Catherine, and she was speaking about, well, we should have a referendum, and we should be asked what we think, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, Seriously, we look at the position we're in because we ask people what they think. Some people who should not have more power than voting for what color M&M should be in the next package. And yet, here we are.
I thought you were worried about being tongue-tied.
Sorry, ADHD.
Don't apologise. I was beginning to wonder whether I was going to get a word in before we actually hit the 11:15 break. And an awful lot of what you said will resonate with an awful lot of people listening. That ravenous hole, that hole that can never be filled. But in the context of what happened on Friday, how does that analysis marry to the events in the Oval Office on Friday? Because it speaks to perhaps a deeper existential malaise at the heart of Trump and Musk. But what happened on Friday?
Oh, that was very clear. I mean, the thing is, Zelenskyy is very principled. And they despise that. He would not go along with Trump's games when he was trying to win over Biden. He would not help him, make up dirt on Biden and on Hunter. And so he holds grudges. It's that simple. It's just a grudge to settle. Zelenskyy could have walked in there with a suit woven out of pure gold, Trump's favorite color. He could have said the perfect stuff. He could have bowed, kissed the ring, done everything. They would have found something, anything, because he just wanted to humiliate him in front of the world. It gave him a high, and that's that beast inside.
And the absolute hatred of what what Zelenskyy represents. Zelenskyy, like Churchill, is no messiah. You know, he's not a perfect, infallible human being, but he is a courageous war leader, and Trump can never be that. Trump can never be that, and he represents something that they know they can never have, which is how they can do the double speak. You know, they can talk about Ukrainian conscription and ignore the Vietnam draft, let alone the efforts by Donald Trump to dodge it, the successful efforts by Donald Trump to dodge it, because the truth doesn't matter when you're playing the game that you describe, when you're feeding appetites that aren't rational, when you can't reason people out of positions that they weren't reasoned into. So it was just about, do you think, I mean, this is, I don't want to say grounds for optimism, but nothing ever lasts with him, does it? He can be your best friend on Monday and your sworn enemy on Tuesday, and then your best friend on Wednesday again. It's humiliating to watch people like Marco Rubio dance on the end of his strings. But in a way, now that he's vented this spleen and humiliated Zelenskyy, we know, is the opposite in the sense that he will always prioritise the national interest over the personal, and Trump will never prioritise the national interest over the personal. That's where the polarity is probably most obvious. Yes. So Zelenskyy will do whatever needs to be done to keep or to return Trump to a favourable position of Ukraine. The problem with earlier callers before you is that may not be something that Trump is ever going to contemplate, regardless of how much Zelenskyy abases himself at the feet of the president.
Exactly. I agree. And no matter what Zelenskyy says, it would just be a further exercise in trying to humiliate him and demean him and break him down further, because he does not respect him. He loathes him, and he wants him to know it, and he wants him to feel it. And it was
personal as well as public or political.
Absolutely. And the bigger the humiliation, I mean, stupid questions like about his suit and like just the nonsense. And the point is, they have no one to be accountable to. They know they can do anything, which is, again, the guardrail of who's going to stop them. The game is over. That's it. They've won. They are now
achievements unlocked. And I still feel empty and hollow. And I know I'll never be half the man that Volodymyr Zelenskyy already is. And therefore, I'm going to try to humiliate him in front of a hand-picked audience with the assistance of my patsy of a deputy who not that long ago called it more or less correctly when he worried out loud that I might turn out to be America's Hitler. And this is all on the record. None of that is opinion, what I've just said. Rosanna's call touching an awful lot of you very, very powerfully, because you perhaps need to park your resistance to hyperbole. I spoke a lot last week about normality bias on one side and a fear of hyperbole on the other. But there comes a time when actually things are as bad as you think. The threat is as real as it appears. Even the guy who came up with, is it Goodwin's Law? The guy who said that on the internet any argument will eventually reach the point where one side accuses the other side of being Hitler. Well, Goodwin himself came out when Trump was running for president the first time and said, hey, this doesn't apply in this case. You make these references, you point out these parallels. Don't use my law to pretend that is hyperbole or that is an exaggeration.
Let's get to more calls. Kris is in Richmond. Kris, you're through to the Commissioner. Morning, Kris.
Good morning, Nick. Good morning, Sir Mark.
Morning, Kris.
I've been American here, living in London for 16 years, and just curious to think if you believe Donald Trump was right to criticise London Mayor Sadiq Khan.
Yes, he said that he was a nasty person. He also talked about the crime that engulfs London. Commissioner.
I'll leave the political sparring to the politicians. In terms of some of the comments that come from America about London, they're complete nonsense. If you look at this, for example, let
me just remind my sorry to talk over you. So look at the crime you have in London. This is Donald Trump speaking. My mother loved London. She loved that city. Today you have people being stabbed in the ass or worse. Your mayor is a disaster. He's a nasty person. Let's not play the man. But President goes on. He's letting crime go. You have areas in London and in Paris where police don't even want to go anywhere near those areas. Commissioner.
So there's no-go areas. That's completely false.
Is that fake news?
I think how anybody in America can suggest the UK is violent is completely ridiculous. I think the homicide rate in London is lower than every single US state. It's lower than all their big cities. I think the murder rate in New York, last time I looked, is about 3 or 4 times higher than it is in London, sort of per capita. Whilst I make this point, the homicide rate in London is lower than it is in Toronto. It's lower than Paris. It's lower than Brussels. It's lower than Berlin. This is a safe city. I'm not going to pretend it's perfect. It's a safe city. injury violence in London is lower than the other cities in the UK, and I think this trend of trying to rubbish London, some of which is driven by politics, we need to we who are proud Londoners need to fight back about it, because there's lots to be proud of about London. Clearly, there are some crime issues that we're tackling, and it's not perfect, but I'm proud of the progress we're making at reducing crime.
What do you make about the personal insults hurled at the mayor by the President of the United States?
I leave political sparring to politicians.
OK, but he's wrong here. President Trump is totally wrong.
But I'm not going to talk about him personally, but
the picture.
The picture that's been portrayed sometimes about London internationally is not accurate.
And coming back to that policy exchange report, there was the suggestion that Sadiq Khan should be stripped of responsibility for overseeing the Met. However, they say a slump in public confidence down to 45%. I have to ask you to react to both those elements.
So that's a report with a forward written by the Shadow Home Secretary, Conservative Kris.
Does that mean it's wrong, Commissioner?
I'm not going to get into the middle of political sparring.
I'm asking you to the polling that they did. Fewer than half of people think the Met's doing a good job. You're the boss. That's not great for the men and women brave enough to do the job, is it?
I can't speak for the quality of their polling. 54% of Londoners say, based on our surveying, independent survey again, 54% of Londoners say that the Metropolitan Police is getting better. Right. Only 18% say the opposite. The vast majority of people are saying the Met is getting better. We are bringing crime down. We're making Londoners safer. Your team were out in Shoreditch, where we're doing this amazing operations to keep people safe at Christmas.
Yep. Thank you for that.
On the Big Friday shopping day a couple of weeks ago, the footfall in London was nearly 3 times as much in the previous 3 years. The policing operations we ran meant that crime was down 14%. London is a safe place to come. It's getting safer every day. My officers are working extraordinarily hard, and we as proud Londoners should kick back against the nonsense on social media trying to run it down.